Every boat's got a horrible cupboard.
Behold, the horrible cupboard. The horrible cupboard.
The horrible cupboard. The horrible cupboard. The horrible cupboard. The horrible cupboard. The horrible cupboard.
What are you doing, babe?
I was having this nightmare that we had a horrible cupboard. But wait, we did.
This is Brilliant 2, a Kelly Peterson 44 built in 1978. This is us, the Smallwoods. And this is the story of our long overdue boat refit. Welcome along for the ride.
Right, the time has come to start pulling this bit of the galley apart. Sink out, taps out, fridge lids out, and prepare to put the Corian down. Behold, the horrible cupboard. So this is what lurks underneath our galley sinks. We've got the drain for the two sinks which go in a T-piece here before they flow downwards. You can see why the sink used to smell so much, because the water would sit in this horizontal area here. We're going to change all that. We've got a seawater hose coming up here for our saltwater wash. We've got some corroded freshwater hoses which go up to the mixer, and there's a lot of wiring in here which, because it's so difficult to get to, is either obsolete or it's been put in from the front here, which is quite difficult access. We've got two fridge compressors here for our port and starboard fridges. They can't move from those positions, otherwise the copper tubes will break. So I'm going to have a good look at this and work out what I'm going to do, what I need to remove, what I need to replace. This is what it looks like from the front. So it's two levels. Down below we've got a freshwater pump, powers the whole boat, and we've got the saltwater pump here, the strainer down there, and hoping to clean this whole area up, make it look a lot more presentable. One of the things I'm going to do in the horrible cupboard is reroute some of this wiring. There's wires that are bridging gaps here, wires that should be fixed to the bulkheads here, same over here. I think that's the first thing, get the wires out of the way. I've already removed a bit of ducting here that was supposedly getting some cooler bilge air to the fridges, but this one over here works perfectly and that doesn't have any such thing, so I've removed that. That's got that out of the way, and of course this will be going as well. The ugly side of moving things around that haven't been moved for a long time in a boat, especially when there's a bit of corrosion present, is well, have a look here, I'll just show you what just happened. These are the freshwater hoses that go up to the tap mixer. All I did was move this slightly, and that's broken right off. So going to need to put a new mixer in before we can actually go anywhere in the boat now, so that's sort of held up proceedings until we get this little problem sorted out. And this one will probably break just the same, and there it is. So if I switch the fresh water on now, water will just come belting out of there. I suppose it could have happened while we were out on the water, and that wouldn't have been very pleasant at all. So there's a silver lining to every cloud. installing these new hoses for the sink drain. It's a really stiff pipe, it's reinforced pipe, it's 38mm diameter, or inch and a half. To put them on these fittings, I'm using a heat gun to soften them up. You can get the plastic really pliable, and a bit of washing up liquid just for a bit of lubrication when you're putting it on. Now, using the heat gun, there's been several, or just around here, explosions in engine rooms, people using heat guns in an environment that's got fumes in the air. You have to be really careful before you switch one of these on. It's got the glowing element in there and it will ignite diesel fumes, gas fumes. Even the last fire that happened here was a WD-40 fire. Someone was cleaning his engines with WD-40, thought he'd use a heat gun to put some new hoses on, and it blew up and off he went to hospital. So they're good to use, but make sure there's nothing flammable and nothing explosive around when you do it. They're great, but be very careful. Okay, everything's in. Put a new mixer in, put that up, and I'll put the sink back in so we can use the boat. And I've replaced the old hose setup here. The two sinks used to come down into a horizontal piece here with a couple of elbows, and then there was like a T-joint with the hose on it that went backwards horizontally as well, and then curved down and came out down here, and then the hose went straight down here and to the seacock, which is down there about 3 feet. So we used to get a disgusting build-up and a horrible smell. So now the hoses go straight down through here into this Y piece and out of the boat. Hopefully it's going to be a much more efficient system. So what I've got to do now is switch the water pressure on, make sure there's no water spewing out everywhere, and also open the seacock and make sure there's no seawater coming in. So I'll just go to our panel, water pressure on, pump went for a second and then stopped, so that's good. So I'll just monitor these connections for a while. And in here we've got the new hoses, the hoses that broke, and I'm just about to go and open the seacock and make sure there's no leaks in the drain hose. This boat still has what I think are its original seacocks, so they're 43 years old, and they're the Groco type, and they have a rubber plug in them that makes the seal. There's a lock on the back here. There's the new hose coming down there. Should be able to open this up, get the water in. You always get a bit of leakage with these, as you can see, until you tighten up the locking nut on the back. Right, so should be water in the system now, and now that these are clear hoses I should be able to see the water coming up through the pipe and have a look at its level, and that'll be the same level as the seawater outside. This is the bottom of the sink, and we'll go down the hose here. Don't everyone start shouting that I haven't got any hose clamps on, I haven't put them on yet. There's the sea level, so the water level outside is about 1.5 to 2 feet above our cabin sole. That's it there, and the sink will drain through here. Going to put hose clamps on here and outside the boat. So there's not actually much of a fall. This is why it's so smelly. It's because the drainage would not really happen properly. This is where the elbow and the T-junction was, so even seawater would sit in that horizontal part there, and seawater has a smell of its own once it's been sitting for a while, so this is as good as we can make this. Okay, that's all buttoned up down there, so I'm going to test this system and see if we've got any leaks. Draining away nice and quickly, not seeing any leaks. If these leak at all, there's like 3 fittings there to get from that unusual size down to that size. If you did get a leak here, all you got to do is put some sealant on there and that'll stop that. Certainly drains a lot quicker than it did. Just checking down here, make sure there's no leaks. The rubber eventually gets a bit hard in these valves, and it's time to replace them. You can still buy the rebuild kits for these, believe it or not. Anyway, nothing too serious happening there. I think I'll pack up. Well, here we are. It's a nice sunny day back on Brilliant 2, back into the galley work. Pulled the double sink out. It's a very deep sink. Tried to get a replacement one of these because this one's a bit dented up and stuff, but I just couldn't get one, so we're going to use the original one. But what this has got in it is these drains, and they are an American size plug. They're actually corroding out. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to get replacement or not that would be the same thread as our drains that we've got. So anyway, we've got these nylon fittings which are 40mm fitting, and they do actually thread onto the bottom of the American plugs, surprisingly. Anyway, I've just been to the hardware store and I've got these brand new Australian ones, and they're exactly the same thread on them. So they come with silicone sealing washers and bronze nut on the bottom. It's not bronze, it's brass. And instead of a nasty rubber plug that we actually had to get from America, they've got these as stainless steel. I don't know if they're stainless steel. Doesn't matter if they corrode away because we can just replace them. They've got a low ring in, and they're gonna go in here. So I'm going to clean this sink up, give it a bit of a polish. I've just bought some polishing wheels. I'll do that on the dock or on the back deck somewhere, and get ready to put back in. So here we are under the galley in the so-called horrible cupboard. What I've done here, instead of painting this surface, is I've just cut out bits of wet area lama panel and screwed them down, slid them under the compressors. You can't move compressors once they've been in for a while because the copper hoses are likely to fracture. So we've improved this shelf. What I'm about to do is start on the lower shelf, and basically going to do the same treatment, close off all the unwanted holes and make that look all nice and shiny like this one. First thing I'm going to do is remove this conglomeration of bits of hose and joints and everything, and replace that with new hose back to the seacock. So this is the old seawater pickup, and this piece of hose goes through underneath the sole, comes up into the lower shelf of the horrible cupboard, tees off somewhere. I think that went to the old water maker, comes along to a pre-strainer, goes into our saltwater pump, and then goes up to the galley, and up there, up there, up there, up to what will be Corian top and a new tap. So I'm going to change all that out for a much cleaner, simpler system.
friends, is how to fix a horrible cupboard. It's a good job you found those hoses when you did.
Oh, the hoses that's just snapped in my hand.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
could have been a bit of a disaster.
Yeah, I only literally touched them and they just snapped off. Still, they did 10 years and they are supposed to just be in a common or garden household kitchen.
Yeah.
Not on a boat.
Now we can get back on with the Corian. It's amazing how one job turns into so many jobs. There was that song that you learned when you were a kid about the skeleton and how one bit was connected to the neck, your knee bone was connected to your thigh bone. It's just like that on a boat. You start work on one section and before you can even finish that section, something else that it's connected to comes into play. So that's a classic example. There we were, couldn't lay the Corian bench top down on top of the sinks until the sink had been sorted out, and that meant getting to the horrible cupboard at last.
Still, that's another job done under there. It looks great in there.
Yeah, and it's going to be much more practical. There'll be room to actually put things that normal people have under their sinks, like dishwashing liquid and cleaning products. We won't know ourselves.
And the horrible stuff that was under the sink, which smelt so bad because of the bad plumbing, is now, well, we haven't had a bad smell, well, not from the sink anyway, for a while.
Oh, and if you're wondering where I've been since I got out of bed at the beginning of the video, I've actually been working in my day job, because that's another reason why the refit takes as long as it does for us anyway. Some people just steam into these things and they start their boat and that's all they do and they finish it 6 months later or a year later. For us, we are doing this, juggling it with our regular jobs and family life, bringing up a child, school, all those kinds of things. We're not actually on the boat full time at the moment, and so it takes time, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We also found it was about maintaining balance, because there was a period of time where we really cracked into the refit at the beginning, where we, I think, thought we could get it done a lot quicker.
Yeah, but we didn't have a choice either, because the boat was in such a pulled apart state that we couldn't use the boat.
Yeah.
So. But
now that we can use it, we do use it, and that we think is really important, having some time that we spend working on it and some time that we spend getting the enjoyment out of it.
Balance.
Yes, it's all about balance. And on that note, see ya! You can't make any noise now because we're meant to be asleep.
Okay,
right.
rolling.
Can't be smiling. It's so true.
You were?
I know, but I was like...
What were you thinking about?
I've got to think about like the horrible cupboard.
Ready?
Yeah.
What are you doing, babe?